Lake Goldsmith Team Rally, Day 1. And on behalf of myself, Trevor Oliver, the President, and the rest of the committee, to all our members, all our exhibitors, all our visiting exhibitors, welcome to Lake Goldsmith, to our overseas contingent from India, France, South Africa, New Zealand, and to all parts of the globe, welcome aboard to Lake Goldsmith, to what we believe is one of the best kept secrets in the Southern Hemisphere. One of our features of this rally, ladies and gentlemen, is steam trucks. Get your cameras out. You are going to see one of the biggest gathering of steam trucks in the Southern Hemisphere. We have the Sentinel steam wagon, and you can see really where these began. The start after horses, very, very primitive, sprung front end, starting to get into rubber tyres, tray trucks, of course, Hino Isuzu, the equivalent of today, the Sentinel, one of the main players in this type of steam-driven tower. You can see the vertical boiler, steam-powered, chain-driven. This is a very good example here. The chain driving the rear end. We haven't got into dips yet, but we're chain drive, lubricator being driven here, cylinders in here directly into our engine, chain driven onto the rear end. Starting to get into a normal, what we call today, steering box, drop arm. We've got a drag link, pitman arm, all there, all things that are on trucks today. So even this far back, a lot of the things are the same. Windscreens, cab door, very primitive cabin, cold in winter, hot in summer, perfect conditions really for working in. So there we go. So steering wheel very much similar, and a sprung front end and sprung rear end. So really the start of what we're looking at today, Isuzu, Hino, all those sorts of things. Another Super Sentinel coming along here. This one's all the way from New South Wales. Sold by William Adams, of course. William Adams, should I say, synonymous with Caterpillar in Victoria, southern New South Wales, and the mining industry. And interesting to note that it was sold by William Adams. Of course, the William Adams story is very, very unique. Started out in a very small office in Sydney, and in Adelaide, and of course are now predominantly one of the biggest Caterpillar dealers in the world, and in fact struck up one of the first agency deals with Caterpillar outside of the United States. So William Adams, a very, very old name, and started with selling Sentinel steam trucks many, many years ago. The Super Sentinel 1925 model, it's written all over the front of it. You can see we're getting into the rubber tyre, the hard rubber tyres, front end and that here. And these really revolutionised, again sold by William Adams. And these really revolutionised transport compared to bullock wagons and horses. They sit along at about 20 mile an hour, average speed of 20 mile an hour, and they can pull off the railhead, off the wharf, and they usually travelled out 20 to 30 miles, delivering all sorts of equipment, transformers, anything really that needed to be delivered. Chain driven, but starting to get a little bit more sophisticated with the way they were set up. And of course it's not long after this, or really around the same time, Leyland steam trucks had full pneumatic tyres and had a diff in the back. So we're really getting along. Have a look here, headlamps coming straight out of the horse-drawn era, buggy lamps really, but the terminology headlamps comes from the horse-drawn era, and it was really only in 2003 when you were doing a big roads roadworthy in Victoria that when you came to the lights they were still called headlamps, and that comes back from the horse-drawn era. A lot of other terminology that we'll get to when the internationals come around, but are magnificent. And I must congratulate the Johnson boys from just out of Ballarat, who were helping organise one of our road runs out of Ballarat and around Ballarat during the Wednesday. We were parading them around, and they were touring around, and they did a run out to Beaufort yesterday with these steam wagons. So thank you to him for all his help, and to everybody that's travelled near and far, because it would be one of the biggest gatherings of steam trucks in the Southern Hemisphere. Another Super Sentinel coming along, and have a look at this. We've gone to spiders, which are what we used on trucks up until butt aluminium wheels came in. but we're using our cleats, our spiders, and this is very, very macking. American type spider setup, you full pneumatic tyres, still chain driven, but certainly a major improvement on where we've come from with the hard wheels and wagon wheels, and very primitive. We've got virtually pneumatic tyres. So another Super Sentinel. Spark arrestor on this one, up on top. And I've got a fly trying to crawl up my nose, which is just wonderful. I'll get rid of that. Wooden cab still got the windscreen, the split windscreen louvers, which were predominantly through all tractor cabs and all sorts of things like that. They used the louver type window for ventilation. What a revolution. You're in the shade, you can stay out of the wind or the rain, and these would have been just the bee's knees in those days. You would have been in the road, passing all the bullock wagons, all the horse-drawn wagons of the day.
Filming it?
Yeah, filming it.
Got a third steam truck. This one's made up, but it's still got all the basic concept. Vertical boiler, cab, made up predominantly of a lot of the parts that are in a steam truck.
I'm okay.
Chain driven, lubricators and everything all on it.
Don't just be nice if you really had enough.
I'm ready whenever you guys are. I don't mind either way.
Correct in saying that? Correct. So there we go. The trailer on the back is the McGrath trailer. It actually belongs to me.
Let's go because we're talking.
And it's got the old flume tank on the back, which would have been molten kerosene in those days. And 44s normally go up here. You can see the FDA on the engine that was towing its Werther when it was on its trip. But a McGrath trailer, of course, you had Freighter's baby swing, and you had McGrath out there as well. And of course, vacuum flume was a very synonymous brand in Australia, Mobil, for relative. Another Super Sentinel wagon coming around. William Adams again, the seller of this. So William Adams was selling quite a few of these around. And as I said before, wooden cab. This has got a roof over the top of it, and was used for all sorts of things. Your tender, for all your water in the back there. So they were fairly heavy before you put a load on them. So they would have tared in at about 7 tonnes. By the time you loaded them up, when you hit road standards, they'd be overloaded. They'd be up around 16, 17 tonne on a single axle. My God, they'd be frowning, wouldn't they? They would have a ball with that, the little Hitlers. They'd be out there with their pen and paper and no regular papers.
And then having
a
layer where air can pass through. Like, so it's not
dear, I'm going to be in trouble for that.
It's just
another Super Sentinel steam wagon again. This is from the science work in Melbourne, and we must thank them for bringing it up. Of course, if you've never been to the science work, it's worth going down. They have a great seating section, but they love coming up here to Lake Goldsmith and showing their wares, and we love having them up here. And we welcome them aboard, and of course they were a part of our run yesterday. I'm going to hand over to Bruce, but I just want to, before you start there, have a look. And I was going to rush through. We're really horse-drawn. We're just minus the shafts.
I guess
they were high wheelers. I was going to get to that, but what I was going to say was, a lot of the things that were on the back, they used to put a truck, which was very, very American, but is used today. In Australia, when you were going to church with mum and dad and grandma and grandpa in the buggy or the jinka, we called it a boot, because you used to be able to put your picnic basket on the back and your boots used to sit in there, because up here in Australia, you wore your junkie boots, and when you got to church, you pulled your good shoes on and walked in and pretended you were higher than mighty, no pun intended. So I'm going to hand over to Bruce for a minute. He's going to give me a hand here commentating on the high wheelers, but I must thank all the people who have come near and far bringing these up to Lake Goldsmith, because these are absolutely beautiful, ladies and gentlemen. Get a camera out, get a picture, and we're going to run through a lot of our international stuff. And you won't see 3 high wheelers lined up like this anywhere else. No, in fact I was hoping, starting with the 1909 one and 5
There's the camera going for the crowd.
As Trevor was saying, this was really the era when they didn't know what to do. They had a horse buggy, so they put a motor underneath it. The motor's underneath, onto the seat.
Same guy.
Little two-stroke motor on the seat. Drove the back wheels. Oh, I was still working as a wagon wheel, could have plenty of those. So really the first automobile.
It's a good bloke. Oh, look at the
As you can see, there's no shape as a car that we recognise today. It's just purely horse luggage and engine underneath it.
Give it some revs.
We moved on a little bit later.
Must have been like just in factories or a port or something.
1910.
Yeah, little low.
Yeah.
As you can see, we got what looks like a bonnet out the front, but it's only the fuel tank. Still has the motor and everything underneath, still a high wheeler. Not much protection for the sunshade. That's all for leave it at. I said that, 1910.